Welcome back. Welcome to the first episode of Monday Morning Mojo for 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. It's amazing to think that a new year has started, and yet sometimes it just feels like we keep going from one day to the next. But I have to tell you, I love the beginning of a new year. I think it represents a fresh start, and I think it represents an opportunity for us to get refocused and really, I think, dive into some of our goals again. And I know we talk a lot about goals here on Mojo, but I will say this today's episode is really important because I think before you set or work towards any of the goals that you have for this year, I want you to think about this first. And so I think the opportunity for all of us right now before we rev up is to actually slow down. And I know that might sound contradictory, but there is power in the pause. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. There's power in the pause because the most powerful thing you can do right now might not be planning, it could be clearing. And so if you've ever started a year feeling any kind of pressure or comparison or overwhelm coming off the holidays, this is your episode to reset. So again, welcome back to the show and welcome to this first episode of 2026. If you're joining me for the first time, I'm really glad you're here. I'm Anna, and today I really am looking to do something a little different. And I think while the world is already shouting about New Year's resolutions and productivity hacks and organization tips, I want to talk about something a little more important, the thing that you actually need before you set any goal. And so this is that episode, and it's going to help you start your year with clarity and alignment, less anxiety, and an intention instead of any pressure. So if you're ready, I am too. Let's get into it. So for this year, I believe that 2026 is an opportunity for us to really have more of what we want in our lives. I don't know about you, but 2025 was a little challenging for me, yet I appreciate all the challenges because I have learned from every one of them. I have come through it smarter and better and clearer about who I am and what the possibilities are in front of me. I think for me personally, I'm clearer about my strengths. I'm clearer about how I want to do things, but more importantly, how I want to feel while I'm doing those things. So it was an opportunity for clarity for sure. And now for me, I think I'm recalibrating and I'm really excited about this year. And as I shared with you in the last couple of episodes of 2025, my word of the year for 26 is elevate. So I'm really excited about what that means and how I feel that's going to position me to look to rise above whatever the circumstances are. Because what I know for sure is that we're never defined by our current circumstances. Even though every once in a while we might lose sight of that, we're bigger, we're better, we are more than just what is happening to us at that moment. And so, elevate for me, that word in 26 is going to really help me manifest, I think, the opportunities that bring me fulfillment and, yes, of course, success. But it's really about aligning who I am and what my potential is, what my strengths are, what my purpose is in doing things that I love. And for me, I find success by helping other people succeed. So I know this year the podcast is going to be a lot about helping all of you connect with things that will help you succeed as well. And so I'm excited that January is kicking it off. For me, when I was writing my notes on how I wanted to frame this episode, I really wanted to focus a little bit on this pause, right? This idea of pausing and why rushing into your goals can create burnout and misalignment right from the jump. And maybe you have a better handle on that. But I know for me, sometimes being someone who is wired to be an overachiever or a high achiever, I get excited. I get excited about the new year and I get excited about the things that I want to create. And I think now when I reflect, there were many times when I did just kind of rush in head first, barreling through the goals and the productivity or what I thought was productivity, but then finding that somewhere around the end of February, I felt burnt out already. And so for me, I want to avoid that as much as possible. And for me, I really want to stay in alignment with what I say I want to achieve and how I want to feel doing it. And so that's why I'm taking the time to, yes, get into action, because we know nothing changes unless we get into action. But I am really being mindful about taking that time for thinking, for planning, for asking good questions of myself, for me to be able to have a pause so that I can plan and really get into the activities with the right sense of energy so that I don't feel like I'm going to just burn out at some point. And so for this episode, what I want to help you understand is that, you can't build something sustainable if you're running on chaos. And I think for a lot of us, because we are high achievers and we do manage a lot of priorities, you can't avoid having times when the energy gets high or it feels chaotic, but we don't have to create more of it on our own. And so I want to talk about how to build something that is sustainable, that is manageable. And the other thing I think we could talk about today too is making sure that you do have some time right now before we get any further into the month, that you really ask yourself any questions around what is still unfinished business that might be hanging over from last year. Because if you have anything that you really intended to complete and it hasn't been done, let's revisit that and talk about what needs to happen right now before you start piling on any new goals. Let's make sure that we are feeling complete about what we intended to accomplish in the year prior. And I just think that this clarity does actually more for our productivity and helps us create a lot of momentum. And so that's why I think it's important. So let's talk about a simple, I guess we'll call it like an internal inventory exercise. Very simple. I'm going to give you a few questions. We'll put them in the show notes too, because I know if you're like me, you're probably listening on the go. So they'll be in the show notes so that you can take some time and really think about these questions. So the first question is, what am I carrying from last year? Now, that could be some emotional baggage. It could be literally something that's taking up mind space in your thinking every day because it's something that hasn't been completed or undone. Maybe it was a goal that you had around your health or a goal around your finances. But just ask yourself, what am I carrying from last year? And what do I need to do with it? Do I need to let it go? Perhaps there was something that happened last year in your personal relationships or in your professional relationships, or something didn't work out the way you expected it to in your business or at work. How can you finally process it? And is there an opportunity to come to terms with it or let it go? Or is there something you need to do to make you feel more complete? Because I think that completion is an important part of our growth and our progress. And when we don't feel complete, those things hang on and they can really, we can ruminate on them and they can cause secondary emotions that might really hinder our progress. And so that's why I think that's such a great question. What am I carrying from last year? So, how can you process that? Ask yourself what needs closure, what might need to be forgiven or released, and maybe what needs to be celebrated. Perhaps you had some major accomplishments last year in any area of your life, and you were just moving at such a fast pace that you didn't even take the time to celebrate. So before 2026 goes on too much further, why not take a moment and actually celebrate, acknowledge, and appreciate those wins? I think that's really important. So those are just a few questions you might want to ask yourself in what I call this internal inventory exercise. And then again, as you're revving up with your goals and you're thinking about all the things you want to accomplish, don't forget to ask yourself about your personal development along the way. In other words, who do you want to become in the process of achieving your goals? Maybe you want to ask yourself, who have I become in the last 12 months? I shared with you that I had some different challenges. I had some different things that stretched me in terms of my thinking. I have some things that I experienced last year about myself as an individual that I really am grateful for and appreciate. I think that I'm asking myself questions around, who am I growing into? Who am I no longer willing to be? For me, I'm no longer willing to be that people pleaser. I've been working on that for a long time. And for those of you that are familiar, like with the DISC assessment, which I've talked about here on Mojo, I'm a high I. And that's one of the things that can be a challenge for someone with my behavior profile because we are so connected to people and want to succeed with people and through people that sometimes that strength can get away from us, and so we turn into people pleasers. And so that's one thing that I'm no longer willing to be. So who are you no longer willing to be in this year? What's the next level for you? What's the next level version of you? Because I believe that if we're constantly growing and evolving, we are just stepping further and further into the greatest expression of ourselves. So those are great questions to journal on or ask at this point in the new year. So what I'm going to do here is run through sort of like a checklist that you can figure out where you might need to zero in. Maybe it's all these different areas. But if you're feeling any sense of overwhelmed from the holidays or you're starting this year with any kind of anxiety for some reason, like I said earlier, sometimes just the sheer excitement of what you want to accomplish could feel like some low level anxiety. So you might want to do something to clear yourself emotionally, clear yourself energetically. That could certainly be accomplished through meditation, yoga. It could definitely be accomplished through journaling and taking some time to ask some great questions. Specifically, I would say if you're feeling any kind of emotional overwhelm or your energy feels off and you feel like you need to clear, just ask yourself again, what are the old stories that I need to let go of? What are those things that I'm telling myself that just don't serve me, that might be holding me back? How can I release myself of any sort of comparison? And comparison can show up in a lot of ways. You can be possibly comparing yourself to people around you or things that you see online or on social media, which we know is probably more than half untrue. And you could also be comparing yourself to old versions of yourself. And so you want to be honest about that and see what you can do to release that, release the old stories and release that feeling of comparison, letting go of any expectations that others might have of you or that you think others might have of you, and create space for who you're becoming, create space for, all the great things that are going to be available to you in this new year. Because remember, there is so much to connect to on such a positive level around. And look, I understand if you look for the negative and if you look for the tragedies, you will find them. And we all experience times that are difficult in our lives. And yet, I believe that there's so much more good out there, and there's so much more love out there, and there's so much more opportunity out there. So find a way to connect with that so that you can call it in, that you can create this magnetic force around you that calls that in, because the universe is here to support you, my love. It is here to support you. So if there's one thing you do differently this year is believe that the universe does have your back and it is here to support you. And so that is why it's so important to just let go and remove anything that could be holding you back, those old stories and that old version of yourself, so that you can create that space so that you have the opportunity to call more in. So I feel like this is an opportunity for you to really understand how to do that and for you to understand that there is so much abundance around you. And so when you create the space to have this time for reflection, when you have this space to really connect with your identity, understand how you've grown over the last year, as I said, celebrate your wins, when you realize that you are moving in new, exciting directions, you are letting go of the things you are no longer willing to be, so that you can step into this full expression, this new version of what you want for yourself and your life in 26. That's when everything comes into alignment. And so having the time for reflection, review, closing those old loops, if you haven't done it yet, choose your word of the year. Use this podcast as a way to springboard into that. What is the one word that you can connect with that embodies what you want more of in your life and what you intend for yourself? And then you can feel really ready to, if you haven't already, set your goals, but now you can feel ready to align with your goals. And that is probably the greatest gift you can give yourself. Even though the holidays might feel like they're over, you can still give yourself a wonderful present. And I feel like some of the things we're talking about in this episode could do just that for you. And so I trust you found something here, even just one thing that meant a lot to you. And so, whatever it is, connect with it, make the time for it. So, even if it is just one thing, that's okay. Whether it's to create the space, clear the clutter, close the loops, let go of the noise, so that you can begin this year with intention and not so much pressure. Because there's no way that you can't accomplish the things that you've already created in your mind. You've already created it in your mind. So now you just have to connect with that, and it can really manifest into your life. And so remember that no matter where you are in your path, no matter your age, no matter your background, you have the greatest thing in front of you right now, which is your future. And the way to build your future is to focus on the present, for you to know that you're not behind, you're exactly where you should be, you're exactly on time, and that it is never too late for you to become all of who you were meant to be. And it is never too late to get started on that path. So I'm going to issue a challenge. If you found this to be somewhat inspiring today, maybe you should bookmark this episode and play it again in 3 months. Play it again in 6 months. Play it again in 9 months. Because what we're talking about today, it doesn't just apply to January. I mean, it's perfect time, I think, which is why I wanted to share this with you today on the first episode of the new year. But honestly, these are reminders that we can connect with every day. Whenever you're feeling a little off track, just remember to find your path again and get into realignment. This message is true on any day of the year. So, on any day of the year, you can find a way to clear it out, to close the loops, to get clear, to be intentional, and to really step onto the path of what you want. So, I am so grateful to be on this path with you. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey with me. I just want to thank you for what you mean in this community to me, and how the last 3 years have really been so exciting and fulfilling. And so, as we embark on the 4th year of the podcast, I'm excited about all the things we're going to dig into this year. I'm really excited for all the things you're going to do with your business, with your life. I can't wait to see your growth. I'm here rooting for you and cheering you on and sending you all my love and support. We're going to, be blessed by some great guests as well on the podcast that are going to share all the realities and all of the gifts and all of the talents that they have too. And so it's going to be an amazing year. And I truly believe that. So thanks for being on this journey with me. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks again.